What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Paranormal Council special edition because we are doing it another week in advance. You guys, you have to be on your toes out there because you never know when we're going to go live and do a Paranormal Council. So when you're trying to coordinate multiple people to come on here, sometimes some days work better for others. So, hey, we all work it out. And Bob will probably have his own show with me at some point. But guys, welcome to the show. Maybe Terry Lynn may join us. I don't know. She's pretty exhausted. It's been a long day for us. Stacy Talich, Sean Carter, guys, introduce yourselves a little bit about yourselves. That way people kind of know a little bit about yourself. Stacy, go first.
I'm a priest of Palomayombe, a remote viewer. I teach both of these things online. I don't teach Palomayombe. I teach hoodoo and conjure, which is a non-theistic form of basically root magic, and the remote viewing, which was trained. It was actually developed by the United States military to create psychic spies. I teach these things on Udemy, and you just have to look me up or even just look for remote viewing. I'm the only person that teaches it there. So,
nice. Sean?
Well, I'm a pastor, still kind of working on paranormal stuff. I work with paranormal teams. I help paranormal teams when they call and consult with that. But primarily, I help people come out of dangerous spiritual situations and kind of deal with all kinds of occult ideology kind of things and helping people in investigations and stuff like that with law enforcement and with church stuff. So just go to jail ministries and stuff like that. So
now, do you have a website or Facebook for these people that do you want to?
Unveiling the Paranormal. If you can go to Unveiling the Paranormal YouTube or Unveiling Paranormal Facebook, either way, and get in touch with me those two ways.
Awesome. Well, guys, I think we're going to have a good show. I hope so, because I'm excited. I think we're going to be talking about a few things now, folks. I just want to let you know we really didn't do a lot of preparation on this. I'm just being truthful. We just really wanted to come at you and give us our true, honest gut reactions to some things. And so it's kind of the last-minute subjects, and I like that sometimes. It really keeps us on our toes. So tonight, I think I want to start out with touching on, because let me just let you folks know, we're going to get into some Hollywood versus reality, okay, in the world of paranormal. So we're going to talk a little bit about both, maybe some of our experiences, how the movies can portray certain things, whether some of those things can really exist, all those type things. So a lot of good stuff to come up later this hour. First, because that's the teaser. That's the big show. So first, before we get into that, I want to backtrack a little bit. I did a show recently where I talked about paranormal laundering. And just to give you guys a quick catch up, is that paranormal laundering, for those that missed the show, it's basically when some of these YouTubers or whether they're on YouTube or any other platform, it doesn't matter. But when you get some of these people that are faking things, there's different types of staging. And so a good classic example is they'll go live. They'll have something staged, planned ahead of time. They'll go live. And then when they don't see something happen in the background, later on, their viewers will spot it and say, hey, look, check this out. This happened behind you. And since he didn't see it or it was live, therefore it must be real. And they use this a lot. There's multiple tactics that they do this with, whether they're shooting an uncut, quote unquote, 30 minutes or an hour long, however they're uncut for. But again, people say, oh, it's uncut, therefore it must be real. Nobody could have done that. Or, oh, this person doesn't normally do paranormal. They just do fishing channels. There's no way that Bigfoot is fake because it's a fishing channel. And therefore, it must be real. So you guys get the idea, I think, paranormal laundering. And I talked about it, and I wanted to since we had the Paranormal Council, and I really cherish Stacy and Sean and even Bob Fountain and Terry Lynn. I cherish all of our council's opinions. But Stacy, I'd love to hear yours first. I'm calling on Stacy first a lot because of the way he's on my screen. So just let you know, there's no favoritism, folks. Stacy, what do you think about paranormal laundering?
You hit it on the head. As far as I'd say, 98% of the time, that's what it is. It's just a little gimmick, and a lot of times, the only time that I actually give it any real credence is when it happens. Years later, even generations later. Like if some of these same shows, like off of Discovery or whatever, they'll go back and they'll look at, footage from like The Wizard of Oz, stuff that hit the floor that never actually made it to the theater, because that one was like considered to be one of the most cursed movies that ever existed, and they had all this weird stuff happen with lights falling on people, and there were like deaths every day kind of thing.
Right.
They have footage of skeletons that were hiding behind curtains and different things like that they like to draw up. I would give a little bit more credence to those kind of things, because that wasn't really a gimmick back in the day. It was just something that people later on caught on to. I mean, even the Nolan Batman had a couple of those, where they, after the movie came out and everybody was like looking at the next movie, there was, interesting things that were happening in the background. They said, this person actually died. I don't know why he's in this shot,
Right.
But, when it comes to reality shows on Discovery, yeah, it's fair game. They just, whatever it is, they need to bring in the eyeballs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sean, I'm gonna let you chime in here and tell me what you think about this type of stuff. And because again, and folks, I just want to again clarify, it's not like Sean lives a paranormal investigator's life. Obviously, he said he's a preacher, but what's nice is that he really has worked alongside with the community, and because of his vast knowledge of additional research, that's why we like his opinions on stuff as well. So, Sean, what do you think about the whole?
Yeah, well, I had many opportunities to kind of watch things happen during investigations. I don't actually go out and ghost hunt, kind of like you said. I'm there. I'm trying to actually stop the folks a lot of times from doing stuff like this, and I'm actually helping people deal with the ramifications of actually going ghost hunting and doing shows like this. Because again, there's some real stuff that happens in places. But as far as, the laundering aspect, absolutely. I agree exactly what Stacy said. I mean, it's 99%, and I would put it as 99% of the stuff I see on TV and in all these other platforms, to me, seems very contrived. Whether it is or not, I can't prove it. But one of the things I see coming from in the exorcism kind of aspect and coming from the spiritual warfare aspect of things, when you're in a real situation, there's things that's happening and you can't fake it. You can't, you may hear things, you may see things, but you're focused on doing some situations. And I often, when I see folks trying to do exorcisms on TV, I cringe, because it's nowhere near. A lot of times it's nowhere near that.
Right.
I will say this: I did actually get a chance to see a big name star, I think, get actually really scared, and he actually really screamed like a little baby girl. And I think the reason he screamed like a little baby girl is because he realized this wasn't what they were faking.
Right.
Something really happened.
Right.
And so, but yeah, I think the laundering part is just kind of like clickbait, see what we've got, come see what we got to generate that traffic on their site.
Yeah, and one aspect that, and you were in a way, you were starting to lead us into the Hollywood versus real. We're going to get there. But before we get there, one thing I really want to bring up about this, I didn't really talk about this aspect, but this is something I want to get your guys' opinion on as well. And that is, and I'll chime in after you guys. And Sean, we'll start with you first this time. But okay, so when you got all these guys that are out there and they're faking it, do you think they're really putting themselves in harm's way? Are they opening gates? Are they opening portals? Are they causing damage? What do you think? What's the ultimate fallout from this?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one of the cases I worked here probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I had an actual team member from a ghost hunting team call, and they were really looking at this, and they was like, well, we really were been fooling around, but I got stuff that's really happening, and I'm scared. And I think what happens a lot of times, and I've used this example before, when you go chasing a car, when a dog chases a car and they're trying to bite that tire, a lot of times it's fun and games until they actually get a hold of that tire and it flips them. And that's where I see a lot of times, I believe, in fact, a lot of times the spiritual world is watching and is engaging us all the time. And if we're not careful how we interact with these things, we're definitely bringing, I wouldn't say negative, but I would say we're bringing a lot of bad spiritual attacks against ourselves. And but then there's some of it, I think people are just oblivious. I mean, they just don't have a clue. They think it's all fun and games, and they think it's and then they never realize where the depression's coming from. They never realize where a lot of this stuff is happening to them.
So, Stacy, I would guess that you're probably on the same train as us on that. So, what I would pose this to you is, so if Sean is saying that there's definitely going to be some like sort of karma or some things that's kind of going to open up and things like that, I guess my question to you, Stacy, would be, how do you think this comes back on them, or does it come directly on them? Does it hurt their loved ones, strangers? How is that ultimately affecting the universe here?
Well, you could ask Mark and Debbie Castellano about that, except they're both dead. They were on Ghost Hunters. They were just the audio crew that was doing the EVPs, and they were a loving couple, and they had a big business thing going with Paranormal Investigations. And, well, it was a murder-suicide, just out of the blue. They had, I don't know if it was spirits that actually caused that scenario to happen, but it's not uncommon for people to not be possessed in the exorcism movie kind of way, but be warped to where everything, the extreme paranoia, and they end up, lashing out and getting really, really violent.
So let me stop you right here, because you're leading into something I want you to expand on real quick, and that is, at what point do we draw the line and say this person was just crazy and they committed a murder, suicide, or whatever, or what percentage or how much of it is maybe influenced by evil or the paranormal in that sense? So continue, Stacy, please.
Well, somebody who is in it as a gimmick, who just found themselves a con, they're not going to take the precautions necessary, before and after an investigation. I mean, when you go to an investigation, do you take any protection with you? I mean, when you come home, do you make sure that whatever is following you doesn't actually follow you home? It's one of these things to where, if you understand what it is that you're working with, you, like anything else, you take precautions. Whether it be in the medical industry, the fire department, police, you take precautions because you understand the danger is real. A lot of these investigators are in it for money and fame, and not even in it for, the reasons they say they're in it. The Indian Paranormal Society over in India, the guy was found dead on the bathroom floor. He hung himself with the shower rod or the shower hose, and for weeks beforehand, he was about ready to get married. He was like, this is like the best time of his life kind of event. And for weeks beforehand, he was becoming more and more paranoid that somebody was following him, that he was being watched, that he could not find a good night's sleep. It was a situation where it was a snowball, where he was losing his sanity over a short period of time, just a few weeks. And leading up to his wedding, he hung himself. And he was one of the most popular paranormal investigators in India.
Right.
And he didn't take these things seriously. It was a gimmick. And, if you don't believe it, you don't have to believe in gravity.
Right.
It's going to get you.
Right. So, Sean, I'll let you, finish up your thoughts on that as well. And also, just to even bring in some more real world examples, do you have any opinion on, a couple of these people that seemingly are very normal people, but then really are sort of deep rooted in evil? Somebody like a Chris Watts, if you're familiar with that case, or even currently now we have that Brian Laundry, right, with the Gabby Potato. Everybody's found that. And you see these people on screen, on social media, very loving type people. And then, of course, all of a sudden, it almost seems like out of nowhere, they're snapping and killing their family. And then you start digging a little deeper, and there's more disturbing things under there. Is that, there's that evil influence that we talk about.
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. Coming from a Christian perspective, we talk about it as our sin nature. We have, as humans, we have this innate sin nature within inside of us. It's like two wolves that are fighting against each other. If you take that old Native American Indian application, yet at the same time, coming back to our conversation here, I want to kind of put some things together with this real quick. We take that sin nature on one hand, and when we are playing around with spiritual forces that we, number one, don't understand and we're not supposed to be dealing with at all to begin with. When we're dealing with all that, we're putting a cocktail together that is very, very dangerous. And it can explode very quickly. It can lead to depression. It can lead to suicide. It can lead to mass murder. And I do believe, and this is where I kind of differ, and I kind of, what I mean differ from a lot of Christians, is I actually believe in the spiritual realm. And
Right.
I actually, I believe that there is evil out there. And that evil is not playing fair. It will do what it can to, whether you want to call it trickster, whether you want to call it Satan, whatever you want to call it, it's there. And if you're not paying attention to what you're doing and you're just off playing with fire, basically, you're going to get burned.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So, a couple things, real quick, and guys, I love those points. Seriously, that's what I was looking for, because some of the stuff I really want to know your opinion. I've got my own opinions. I'm going to cover a little bit of that. There's a couple things I want to cover real quick. One is, guys, sorry, normally I like to give some shout outs. We had a guy earlier in the chat before we started, Rupert Fellows. Don't know if he was trolling me or what, but hey, we'll still say shout out to you. I see you. You see me. It's good to see you in there. Facebook user. Again, some of these people, I don't know who they are because they didn't either give me permission or whatever. But that's okay. We want to say hi to you. And of course, my wife, Terry Lynn. Now, she has a question as well, which we're going to get to. Don't worry, honey. We're going to get to you. She wanted to be on the show, but again, but she has a question. And let's see, am I missing anybody? Oh, yeah, Matt came in here. Matt Barron from Paranormal Consultant, right? He popped in. What's going on, Matt? But Terry Lynn says, I have a question, probably completely off topic, but of course we actually just brought we do that all the time. She brought up as we were talking, as I brought up the Gabby Potato case, but she said, however, Stacy, have you been keeping up with the Gabby Potato? Any visions, thoughts on where you think that piece of shit Brian is?
Well, I actually haven't. I watched a Megan Kelly clip for like 60 seconds today on it, and she had her opinions and stuff. I don't really know that much about the case other than, a pretty blonde girl ended up dead, and the guy who she was with is now missing, or they found him in another state or something like that. And the parents are kind of skeevy about giving information. That's really all I know. I don't, because of what I do in remote viewing, sometimes if I'm called to actually work a case, I don't want to be front loaded with too much information.
Right.
Way I go into it blind, and all the data that I get is pure. So in these kinds of situations, I just try and ignore it, even though that it's like everywhere.
Do you ever find yourself doing that though? Like, have you ever watched like something on the news and then you sat down and did a session on it just to kind of see and practice your skills or something?
Yeah, well, when they show actual footage or pictures of the people, stuff comes through immediately, and that's why I try and ignore it, because I don't want to essentially front load with things that are going on. All evidence so far points to this guy is the shitbag that's doing it, but at the same time, around the same time, 2 other girls have still gone missing. So there might be a serial killer out in the woods of Wyoming for all we know.
Right. Okay. No, I mean, fair enough. Matt said that the guy that said hi guys is Robert Regie. Hey Robert, it's good to see you. I did talk to Robert recently, and he did say, I think tonight they're going to the Winchester mansion, him and some people. So good luck with that. Have fun. I hope you have a good time with that. And I mean, I think it'd be cool to. I always like checking out places. Am I big on the big box locations? I mean, in a way, they kind of start getting to where it's like a little touristy, cheesy kind of thing, and I'm not sure how I really feel about them anymore. Half the time when I do get a chance to go to some of these bigger locations, it's like there's times, and I don't know if it's just me, but like I just get this overwhelming feeling from the spirits that they're almost embarrassed, like they're being used or something. It's really awkward. But anyways, just thought I'd throw that out there. So okay, well, I think we kind of covered what I was hoping to get out of some of that paranormal laundering. Also, I got my first press pass recently to do some photography and everything, so I'm happy about that. Hit a deer last night and destroyed the front end of my Jeep, so that's going to hurt me right now because I don't have comprehensive on my. Apparently, I didn't select the comprehensive option when we picked out our insurance on the Jeep. So
keep the deer?
Huh?
Did you keep the deer?
No, there was nothing.
No. It wasn't that big.
It was obliterated. It was pretty bad. Like I said, it took my whole front end out. So not good.
Bambi burgers are good. They're good eating.
I know. I got a bunch of deer meat in the freezer. So trust me, got a bunch in the chest freezer. So yeah. I mean that's horrible. All right, guys, let's do this real quick. We're gonna get into some fun things because I really want to get into some things. Guys, let me share some things real quick. First thing I want to show you guys is go check out, and I'm just gonna bring it up here. Wait, hold on. I don't want to do that. Hold on. Let's do this right here. That way you guys can be over here and you can react to this. Stacy, here's just a little search. Guys, I just wanted to show people, hey, this is what I kind of see when I look up udemy.com and I look up Stacy. Guys, go check out some of his courses. I mean, he's got remote viewing stuff, basics of spirit communication, defense against the black arts. I mean, guys, if you're really serious and you're into some of the spiritualism, you're going to want to be taught by somebody that's very intelligent. If you guys have not watched Stacy on my show, he's very knowledgeable, very knowledgeable. I really enjoy his knowledge. He's helped mentor me. I've helped him. We have a really good working relationship, but I've taken some of his remote viewing courses. Really, really good stuff. I just wanted to make sure I show you guys. And right now, I don't know how the prices really are. Maybe I'm seeing some discounted prices, but like $13.99, $12.99. I mean, like there's always discounts off and on. Some of these courses cost a lot of money, but they're well worth it. So it just depends on when you can catch it. But I wanted to show you guys at home. Also, too, guys, go check out again Sean Carter at Unveiling the Paranormal. You can see here he's got some videos. Go give him some love. He's got 296 subs. I'm subbed, so go give him some love. Go check out Sean's channel. There's some really cool stuff. I mean, look at this: Unveiling the Paranormal, Dream Warfare, Real Satanic Ritual Killers, signs of spirit influence and manifestations. I mean, these are some really good topics, and I definitely need to catch up on some of these videos because, Sean, I will admit I did forget about your channel right here, about the Unveiling the Paranormal channel on YouTube. I'm always used to seeing your Facebook posts, but guys, go check out these things. These are really cool. So, and since we were talking a little bit about movies, one thing I want to segue into where, Stacy, you brought up some of the different movies and how there was these urban legends about some of this stuff in the background. So I wanted to bring up the whole 3 Men and the Baby. There's just like a classic ghost scene. If you see, there's like some kind of looks like a kid or something in the thing. But now I look at this and it looks like the cardboard cutout. And this is supposedly the classic scene. So I don't know what this is, but again, when you look at the 3 Men and the Baby, like ghost per se, they point out it looks like a cardboard cutout of the Ted Danson thing. See, like even right here, this one right here, I think. So that's what it looks like to me. It looks like it might have been something that was debunked. I mean, if you really look at that, and then you look at this.
Yeah, it looks debunked.
Yeah. So again, guys, this is kind of what Stace was talking about. I just wanted to make sure I showed you guys. So, let's see, what was this one? Oh, this was like a little bit of a bigger view. Yeah. So there you go. I just wanted to show you guys. I thought that would be pretty fun to bring and show you guys some of what these guys do. So go check out both udemy.com, look up Stacy Talich, and also Sean Carter on YouTube, Unveiling the Paranormal. So there you guys. I plugged you guys. And also real quick, let's take a quick break to check out my little teaser here. Well, hello. Happy Halloween. I love your costume. Very simplistic. I love the sheet. Would you like some candy? Hello? Hello? Okay. Just going to go back in. So there you go. All right.
Very cool.
So yes, if you guys want to see what happens, go to Paraflix and you can see the full. My original, listen, I'm not going to lie to you. My original intention, I was just going to release it to you guys on my own channel, but then I showed it to Paraflix and they actually invested money to make it into a commercial. So it's actually out there on quite a bit of platforms or whatever. And so I just thought I'd share with you guys the commercial version. So, all right. So now that we made this transition into Hollywood versus reality, this is the classic battle between people involved in the paranormal and, of course, Hollywood. Now, listen, I'm just going to give my take real quick on things because I haven't really given my opinion too much this show. I don't think at all. But I will say this. Hollywood is entertainment. You know, I don't like scary movies. I only watch them because my wife makes me. I like trying to film them and make them now. That's pretty cool because I kind of control all that. And it's pretty cool. But actually watching them, like it's one of those things. Like I'll watch them and like one of those like I don't want to watch it, and then I watch it and then I'm like, okay, it was cool, but I don't like scary movies. So that's like I'm kind of bad about that. Like I like them, but I don't like them. You know what I mean? I don't want to watch them, but when I do and I'm forced to, I do enjoy them at times. At times, but don't listen to that, honey. I'm not watching a scary movie tonight. So, but again, there is that point at which are we misleading people too much? Like, and I think some of the ones, in my opinion, like when you have like a Nightmare on Elm Street or something, you know, Freddy Krueger, like to me, that's so off the wall, unbelievable that I don't think anybody's going to be misled by that. You know, I mean, but at the same time, when you have certain things like, say, Blair Witch or Paranormal Activity, these reality-based type shows, these are the ones I think that start blurring the lines. So it's a little interesting. I'm going to let you guys get some general thoughts in there. Stacy, this was your main subject, so I'll let you go up first.
Well, I like horror movies. I don't like the slashers, like the Jason, like what you're talking about. The Nightmare on Elm Street is kind of like the exception to it because it's the anti-hero kind of thing. But Michael Myers and Jason and chainsaws and axes and things, but I don't like those because it's just gratuitous. The ones that actually make you think and make you feel, like your Paranormal Activity, your Blair Witch, you actually empathize with the characters that you're with. Where it blurs the line with me is when they try and make a film documentary that's a film more than a documentary, and
Right.
I'm referring mostly to like the Conjuring series with the Warrens. um I've never met the Warrens, but I know people that have met the Warrens, and a lot of the things that come out in the movies, of course, never happen the way that they show it. And it's one of these things where people walk away thinking that happened the way that they portray it.
Right.
you know
It's like, well, this is based on a true story because Ed Warren drank milk on the counter. That's
Yeah,
it. Based on a true story, they put that one little thing in there. So yeah, I get it.
well, they do it all the time with when they want to crack open a new genre. Hollywood will find something and they'll see that it has a morsel of success, so they'll make another 12 movies based off of that same kind of thing. And if it doesn't hit, then they leave it alone. The cultural thing called like La Norna that came out right after The Conjuring, it flopped.
Right.
So they're not going to make any more of that. Bloody Mary, they made a movie on Bloody Mary, same thing, it flopped. It's what actually sells, and then they really it's all about sensationalism. It's not about teaching people or educating people on what is real and what is not. And that's if it was pure fiction, okay. If it's documentary, okay, but don't make it incestuous like that.
Right. Sean, what do you think? You watch a lot of scary movies or what?
Well, I don't watch a lot of horror films, but I get into odd kind of horror films. Like a lot of people don't know that Clint Eastwood made a horror film Western, and it was named High Plains Drifter. That movie actually has the script as you see him riding in. He's riding through a graveyard. As he's leaving, he's riding through a graveyard, and it's pretty interesting. So I kind of like movies like that have that era of spirituality to it. But I see this a lot of times with people that I deal with in some of the SRA stuff, satanic ritual abuse stuff. in fact, we done a show here not too long ago, kind of outing a guy. And at the very beginning, and this is going to be pertinent to what Stacy was saying, at the very beginning of the show, this guy's making a whole video documentary. At the very beginning of the documentary, he says, and he looks straight at the camera and goes, "Everything I'm about to tell you is fiction. It's part of my book." But by 5 minutes into the program, he's got you hooked. And the whole idea, they've got you hooked in thinking, "Oh, this is real."
Right.
And to me, that's it's showmanship. And then you have people, it's got to be true, man. It's got to be true. And I'll point back to those first 3 seconds when he says, "It's all for fiction."
Right.
No, man, he's just lying. He just has to put that out there so he don't get in trouble.
Yeah.
Right. And I think one thing I want to shout out to is, like, if you guys ever get a chance, I think it's on Amazon. There is a series called Blackwell Ghost. And I don't know if you guys have seen it or not, but it's an independent made deal. The guy, so basically what it is, and I gotta say that the guy did a very good job. It's like he put together this puzzle and then worked backwards from there, and then started filming it, and he really did this. But basically, it's like it kind of was one of those where not so much like a lost footage, but more of that self, filming style. I'm going to film myself. And he says, "Look, I don't believe in ghosts. I'm just going to, I'm going to set out to prove that they're real. I'm going to just use my filmmaking skills to prove that they're real." And so he starts out on the quest because I guess, like, according to him, there was like a couple of clips on the internet where like a lot of things were fake, but then he saw this one clip that was just like, it to him seemed like it was real. So he just set out to prove ghosts were real somehow, even though he wasn't a believer. So he contacted the owner of this house, or the clip or whatever, the original clip, and he flew his little plane, his little Cessna out to this guy and stuff. Anyways, long story short, the film progresses and it gets deeper and deeper, and then there's a second part, and there's even more discovered. There's this box that was buried, and it was like this old box that was buried, and it looked like it was really buried there for however long. And again, there's this whole mystery. Then he goes to Florida. There's this serial killer where they didn't discover all the bodies, and like there's all this paranormal activity happening, but all the paranormal activity is like trying to tell him stuff, kind of. But it's done really well. Like, I've got to say, it's done really well. There's times, of course, I'm just like, okay, this is way over the top. And like, I know how he's doing it. But at the same time, it literally, like, even for me, I was left at the end almost doubting myself, saying, okay, is this kind of real? How much of this really is real? Like, I had to start, like, doing some actual research, trying to find out what this was. And I don't want to give away to people how real or not real it is, but it was very well done in my opinion, for like an amateur type independent film. And he had a few other real films that he did out in Hollywood, some smaller stuff, but they were like some zombies, things and stuff. And he admitted that even in the documentary or whatever,
What's this called again?
Blackwell Ghost.
Blackwell Ghost. Okay.
Yes. I would recommend that. It's worth the few bucks or whatever to buy it. But Terry Lynn and I, we really enjoyed it just to watch it. Even if you just let yourself go and just get into the what if this was possibly real thing, you'll find yourself at times going, did he combine maybe some real elements with and just faked a few things with some like knocking or something, whatever, you know what I mean? Did he fake some of this, the paranormal aspect, but then some of the stores are real, the photos, like all these things. You're just like, well, how much of this really is real? After a while, by the time you watch all the I think it's like five of them all together, you really almost want to watch the sixth. I mean, it is. So, So real quick, I want to touch on what. Oh, and I wanted to follow up with one more thing. I know I talked a lot, but one more thing is like I just wanted to kind of also comment a little about what you guys are talking about. Is that with movies, I when it comes to scary movies and stuff, it's kind of a mixed bag for me. I think for me, it's how they tell the story. Like I don't mind a slasher movie, kind of. It just depends if how they tell the story. I think there's different types of slashers. I think the ones where you kind of get the Jason and the Freddy and it's more of that like teen sex and slashing and stuff like that. Like that's like Stacy said, gratuitous. It's whatever. But when you really get into certain other films that are almost a little more stylistic, but yet still kind of slasher films, it gets a little more interesting. But it just really depends on the story and how well they do with it. I don't mind a variety. So
scary movies to me are completely ruined by my background. I didn't watch The Exorcist when I was younger, and it was out in the early 70s or late 70s, something like that. It was in the 70s, but I never watched it. I actually watched it after I had seen the Evil Dead series, with Bruce Campbell and all of that. So I ended up laughing throughout the whole movie because it was as ridiculous to me. It was supposed to be scary back in the day, but
right,
when the head started to spin and she started to sue, I just, it was funny. I did not see it as a horror flick at all. My daughter, on the other hand, she saw it at the same time and she got freaked out by it. And of course, she loves scary movies too. But I can't, unless it has to do with aliens, I just can't get scared.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think that's the other thing is I think it's just based on what certain things start to kind of scare you, or even just make you tense. Sean, what do you think I'm adding to that?
Yeah, for me, I think it's like when I deal with people, like if I take a deacon or somebody with me, or somebody who's never dealt with spiritual warfare, and the things are happening in the moment, and they're sitting over there just petrified because they haven't seen real spiritual warfare. They hadn't seen the real deal. And I'm kind of like Stacy when I see things like The Exorcist, and it's stupid, it's misleading, it's funny, it's almost like a comedy to me, in a way, because yet kind of switching gears a little bit. I don't know if you guys ever saw Room 1408, I think is what it was. The show.
Oh yeah. With John Cusack.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Now, behind me is the you can probably see the skull, but I put Dante's travel kind of picture behind me. And if movies I do kind of like in the sense of this is that tell the background of spiritual things that's already there. And if you're watching that movie 1408, you can actually see Dante's, Inferno playing out, in real time in this modern depiction. So I kind of get into stuff like that. But again, I think the kind of in my comments here is when you're actually dealing with real spirituality, you're dealing with real stuff. Horror films and stuff like that, really, you see kind of the funny side of it.
Now, I will be a little candid, and I'm going to share something with you guys. So don't laugh at me because this is real. This is like those things that. So when I was younger, and I was starting to get fascinated by paranormal. As far as just like, I found a book, and I think it was like Mysteries of the Unknown or something like that. It was just like that classic thick book, and it talked about all the different types of the history of paranormal, ESP, all this stuff. But there was it got to a part where there was some images, like they had some ghost pictures and stuff in there.
Is that the Time magazine series that they did?
I believe it's like that thick hardback book. I have it somewhere. I still have it to this day. But anyways, there was an image in there that haunted me as a child. Even to this day, it's very. I look at it and I just still like whatever. I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to show you the image. So, but this image here always scared me, and I think it's just because again, there's a couple things. I think one, that kind of Mike Myers effect, that emotionalist effect, but also they say that that this phantom would have been like 12 feet tall or something, given the proportions of everything. I don't know, but there was just something always eerie about me, and this was captured by a priest at this church, and this is the specter of Newbie. So I'm going to show you guys right here. So there's my childhood haunt right there. I just, something about that phantom, and the, even though yes, this could have been faked with the double exposure and all that back then, you know, it doesn't bother me. It's like, to me, when I was growing up, I found this to be the most credible image when I was a kid, because it was taken by a priest at the church who was taking a picture. If you look at the original picture of the altar and everything, and it wasn't intentionally like centered on the phantom. So it really, to me, I thought was in my mind as a kid was the most plausible picture. And it just, that terrified me to think that there was something that could look like that in the afterworld.
Well, I mean, it's sort of self-actualization. I mean, every show you have a new guest, you ask them what their ghost outfit's going to be. Clearly, that's what they chose.
Right? That might be mine. I might have to. That might just be like what I'm going to end up using, just to, you know, one of those things, like self-fulfilling prophecy things or something. I don't know.
The screen mask.
I'm going to close that down. Okay. All right. I close that. So, I mean, it doesn't necessarily scare me now, but I can see why in the image of that white phantom with the hood and stuff. I mean, that still always gets me. It does. And I think it's that Mike Myers effect, that emotionalist face. You know, there's really no emotion. So it just gives it that creepy vibe. And then when you see the full picture, which I don't have, you can see the feet where there's no feet. It's just like it drapes down onto the steps, and literally could be something on the steps. And anyways, I just wanted to share with you guys. I thought I would put myself out there and show you, since we were talking about movies and things that might scare you and stuff like that. So,
Well,
all right, go ahead.
It wasn't that one, but it was also in a church. It was taken from the church had burned down or whatever, and they rebuilt it back up, and their bunch of nuns were killed in the fire, and they were taking pictures of the new church. It had been reconstructed, but the floor had been raised like 4 feet from what the old church was, and they took pictures of these nuns, ghost nuns, and they were still walking on the old floor. So it was like, you know, they were from the kneecaps down. You couldn't see anything because they were in the floor itself as they were walking.
Right.
It looked like that. It was like double exposure or whatever. And as a kid, I was like, you know, that is really creepy. So,
Sean, what about yourself?
Well, you know, talking about childhood, I think there was a TV program one time, and I think I was trying to remember the name of it, but it was Snow Beast, I believe it was. And they never really showed the beast until the very end. You know, it's kind of one of those things you always see the hand coming across, or you'd see something else. But just that idea of a young child seeing some of these things. And then I want to open up to something funny, but I think it's also kind of inspired me for what I do in my adult life. But I love watching Scooby-Doo, you know, because every week they were hunting ghosts and exposing the realness of what was really going on. They never caught one, I don't think, but
Right. Well, at least not until the movies, and they try to
Yeah.
start throwing stupid magic in there or something. It's like,
Yeah.
come on, man! It was better when they somehow were real and had all these fancy gadgets to make it seem like they were really flying and stuff. It's like, how did you not see the rope pulley system the first time?
Yeah.
But so I want to add this to the list because I think it'd be fun to. Well, no, let's you know what let's make people wait even longer. Um, I let's but not keep you guys. No, we're gonna talk some interesting stuff. Don't go away. 6 people watching. Um, so in the movies, we see a variety of things that are done, whether it's exorcisms, things like that. I want to really dive into the sort of the nuts and bolts of this conversation, and let's talk about some things, some examples of movie things, and then some examples of real world experiences. Sean, I want you to go first on this one this time, since we've been kind of going back and forth between you guys. Sean, what do you think about? Because I know you keep bringing up kind of like the exorcism stuff
Mhm.
versus maybe reality. Whatever you want to pick, though.
Well, a lot of times when you talk about exorcisms, there's or I don't really like to call them exorcisms, to be honest with you. I call them freedom encounters, because we're bringing freedom to the person. But when we're dealing with that in real life, there's a whole lot of things that can be happening supernaturally. You can hear voices, you can hear weird things going on, and sounds, and stuff can move, and stuff like that. And temperatures sometimes, I have noticed that the temperature can go down. But as far as seeing my breath and somebody's head spinning in 360, or vomiting up stuff, or stuff like that, I've never seen anything like that. Um, Kind of interesting. The Catholic, which I don't adhere to, the Catholic exorcism rite, the old one, not the new modern one. The old one, they did try to have a recording device nearby, as um, when that technology became available, and it was to actually try to catch things happening. And if they would, and they had a weird way of thinking about it. If they caught like an EVP back then, and we're talking um, late 40s, 60s, 70s, in that era when they were doing that, um, it was really weird because they thought that if they caught a voice or something on there, that the person was still possessed.
Oh my god, that would suck. Can
Yeah.
you imagine? Can you imagine there's just some ghost observing this, and he's just watching this whole process, and he's like, "Hey, watch! I'm going to speak into the thing. They're going to keep this up for a while."
And that's, they were really kind of thinking about those things. But as far as the movies go, um, I've heard people say that The Exorcist is the closest thing they've ever seen to real stuff. I don't agree with that. Um, there's one movie, and I can't, and I'll let Stacy or somebody else say while I'm trying to think about this. But there was one movie that I thought really came close to. It seemed like it, and believe it or not, I hate to bring this guy's name up, Nicolas Cage, but I think he was in it, and I
As long
can't.
as you don't say "Season of the Witch," we're good.
Okay, yeah,
Or Wicker Man.
Wicker Man, yeah,
Not
but
the bees.
I think that came closest to what I kind of see. But I'll let somebody else go.
Stacy.
Well, as far as dealing with the real world, and the temperature difference that they, like in the exorcism, the only time I've ever actually experienced a huge temperature difference was during a seance. And my religious house in Chicago, when I was living there, we would hold seances every Sunday, like you would go to church, as a spiritual development tool. So you could learn the difference between different things, and you'd have a support group if things got out of control. There would be other people that could jump in and actually, you know, render the situation harmless. Well, there was one time where it actually did get out of control, and it was the seance itself, there were 50 people in the room sitting congregation style, and the room got really, really cold. Now, given this is the middle of winter in Chicago, my instant was somebody opened a window and let all the heat out, because you got 50 people in a room, it gets hot too. So somebody cracked a window, it's got real cold. It wasn't the case. The room just got cold. There was no air conditioning going, any of that sort. As a matter of fact, when the seance was done, we left and opened up the door to the outside, and we felt heat come in. It was actually colder inside than it was outside in sub-zero weather in Chicago. You know, you could see your breath and all of that. I didn't think anything of it while it was happening because, well, you're just used to being in the cold in Chicago. But during the seance, you know, there are things that you see, things that you feel that are not Hollywood at all. You ever see the movie, and I'm referencing a movie for Christ's sake, The Predator, you know, with the alien, and you see the glistening outline of the creature as it's...
Get to the chopper.
Yeah. Well, that's when spirits come through and you see them, a lot of times that's what they look like. They're shimmering out, you know, looks like they're cloaked like the Predator alien. You see them, you see their form, you see them move, and you know, you can start to hear what they're saying with your ears. Some people can't, some people can. It's just how you sync up with that energy force.
Right.
Hollywood doesn't portray that at all. It's either you're, you know, born psychic and it just happens to you, which isn't always true. People can train to be that way. Or you're the long lost descendant of some crazy witch who, you know, gifted you her powers through genetic codes. And it, granted, it makes things simple for a storyline in Hollywood, but in real life, that's not it. And you know, it actually has created a lot of what they used to call witch wars. You know, back in the day, back in the 80s, all of these Wiccans were trying to trace back their lineage to, you know, Salem, and then they were, you know, long lost descendants of, you know, this person and that person, and you know, they were the most powerful witch in town, you know, different things like that were all based off of this idea that A, only women can be witches, and two, that it was genetically, and that was all Hollywood.
Right.
And, you know, people start believing in the Exorcism too. Now that I'm thinking about it, the satanic panic that was going on in the late 80s, a lot of people would take what was going on in the news and think it was an actual thing happening. If you're not familiar, satanic panic was a period of time where there was actual witch hunting going on. Psychologists were doing retro hypnosis on schizophrenics to determine whether or not they were actually raised in a satanic cult and witnessed children being sacrificed and a lot of these things. And we got at one point 7 million babies a year were being sacrificed. You know, it was sensationalism from not Hollywood, but from New York, from
Right.
the news media. Geraldo got into it, you know, doing all that, the satanic panic. Anyway, people in local communities started pointing to people in their communities as being possessed, and they were doing exorcism, tying them down and depriving them of food and water for 3 days while they prayed over them and, you know, tried to scare the spirit out of them. And they actually killed some people back in that time because they were deprived of, you know, food and water, trying to get this exorcism thing. And it was all Hollywood based and frenzied from New York. Things they see on TV, and they're experts in exorcism. Real life isn't like that. You have to know what you're doing, especially when something is as dangerous as an exorcism.
Right. Yeah. And so real quick, I want you guys to think of, is there any type of, and could be any genre of scary movie, slasher or realistic, whatever. Is there a movie that you think could possibly, what's a movie out there that could be plausible to a point? You know what I mean? I'm not talking about fully. Obviously, I don't think any of the Hollywood movies are like 100% plausible. But I'm saying, what's the one you think is closest to plausibility?
Phew.
Either one, either anybody.
Well, there was one, and again, I don't want to be picking on Nicolas Cage, but I think he actually made one like 2-3 years ago that they were doing real ritual on set. They were actually, if you even watched the movie itself was, you were part of the ritual itself. I forgot the name of it. I'll have to maybe put it in the show notes, or have you give it sometime later. But maybe somebody in the chat room will do it. But that one, I think, when you have people doing real ritual, and they're actually putting the things inside of the movie, I think that can be that. But as far as an actual real movie, what could be real?
Well,
It's not Prisoners of Ghostland, is it? No, that's new. That's some new one. I think it's a new
yeah,
trailer.
it's brand new.
No.
No, that's an Escape from New York kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. I was just typing. I typed in Nicolas Cage movies with rituals.
I don't even know if they actually released it, because there was some uproar in Hollywood about them actually doing that movie. But
all right, Stacey, what do you think? Anything plausible?
Yeah, there's an old indie movie. It's got to be 10 years old now. It's called Borderland. It has Sean Astin in it, the Fat Hobbit. He's the only real known actor in it. Everybody else is, these unknown actors. But it was based off of a real story that happened where, in the borderland of Mexico, a kid on spring break crossed the border. He was ultimately kidnapped and sacrificed to a cult. They called themselves Palomayimbi, but they weren't. The cult itself was completely, they made up their stuff the same way that, some people make up, chakra healing and things of that sort.
Right.
Really based off of anything that was tradition. It was just pulled out of their own butt. But the murder did take place. Matthew something or other. This was, back in the day, and they made a movie about, what had taken place in that period. And, they took some liberties with it too. But it was really
well, while you're speaking on that, you spoke on a satanic panic, and I agree somewhat with what you said, but you just kind of proved my point. What was happening back in the day, a lot of people were trying to get into satanic panic, and they used that as, well, this stuff don't happen. But you just pointed out one real time. We got the Zodiac Killer. We got Sam, the son of Sam Killer. You got the Process Church that's operating in that same time period. So now we're actually seeing that it was more real than what a lot of people want to imagine.
Yeah.
And even the FBI, and I've done a show here a few weeks ago, even the FBI now are having to kind of come back and actually kind of retract some of that stuff now, because they're actually being proven now that, like Israel Keys, I've done a show on him a few weeks back. And, the reason I say that is because a lot of times this stuff that we're seeing in these documentaries, we're hearing the satanic panic. Oh, that can't happen. That's not real. But yet we're seeing in real life things that are happening now that actually do lend itself to there's a satanic group. And I don't even know if I would call the Process Church satanic. I mean, I would call them satanic, but they were more Christianese than anything else. So I'll just kind of leave it there. But
Yeah, I was more referring to the credibility that was being given to it through these forensic psychologists and the
Right.
regression hypnosis. It
Right.
it was a self-fulfilling dynamo effect where people would see this stuff on the news or hear a report from Geraldo, and this was back when everybody actually believed the news.
Yeah.
And they would start looking around their communities, and there were people in daycare centers who were honest people who were being persecuted because they were heard on the news that they're trying to take children from daycare centers, and it's all coordinated with the police departments and the local churches and these daycare centers. So some people actually were harmed permanently from it. So one guy lost an eye, things like that. And it was hysteria is what it was. I'm not saying it didn't happen, because there were people, that was the big books of the day. You got Anton LaVey stuff. You have the Necronomicon that was coming out around that same time. And it was the beginning of the comic novels, the dark, I forget what it's called now, the Vertigo series that were these really dark adult graphic novels. And that was the thing.
Well, and I want to chime in here too, and I want to say that I think that you both have a good point, and I want to meet somewhere in the middle on this, because I think Sean is right in the sense that there was these things going on. I think anytime you have in history, you'll see trending, right? And I think that probably at that time there may have been some satanic cults that were kind of trending in that sense with the churches and some of the things that were out there. Again, this would be right around that time when we were coming out of that nuclear family age where there was a lot of rebellion. People wanted to just get away from the old, suit tie, mother, father, happy childhood home, and all those things. But then at the same time, I will say that I think Stacy's right as well. I think that there was a lot of people that were using that trend as a license to not to kill, but a license to do these things to people and to say, hey, and these regressions and all that stuff, and use that to their advantage, and whether it's for their own little sick, twisted torture or power trips, narcissism, whatever it was. But I think there's both sides. I think Sean brings out the point. Yes, there probably was a lot more that we are looking back, and there was some reality to some of that. But I think Stacy's also kind of trying to point out the fact that this is also that result of all of that trend is people riding the trend, using that to say and create the witch hunt. Basically, I just want to sum it up in that, like you said, Stacy, like a witch hunt. So I think both of you guys make excellent points, and I think that's all true.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, Borderland is actually, it kind of creeps me out because they keep referring to Paulo Mayombe throughout the whole thing, and I'm like, that's not what that is. Right there, it's not what that is.
Right.
Even though that, historically speaking, the serial killer psycho person that was in the movie, who actually did it, that's what he believed he was doing, and that's, the movie itself is low budget, has Sean Astin in it and all of that, but yeah, that's
I'm gonna say for my thing, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna go with 2 because I can. So no, I just want to make 2 quick points. One is, as much as I make fun of the movie, I think that technically it's plausible, and that is The Wicker Man. Okay. We all make fun of it sometimes if anybody's ever watched it. I mean, how can you not enjoy Nicolas Cage punching a freaking bear?
No, you gotta watch the original from the 70s.
I don't care. I'm talking about Nicolas Cage, man. You got to go with Nicolas Cage on this. Okay. I'm not going back to the original. That's like talking about what is like a haunting or something like the original versus the remake and stuff like that. But no, I mean, I like Nicolas Cage, like The Wicker Man. If you really think about just the core essence of a cult, sacrificing somebody. I think those are obviously very realistic. That something that could happen to people, and something that probably has happened to people. I think there was an instance of somebody sacrifice, like burning, people and stuff like that. So I think as far as plausibility, I think that could be a good one. Another one I just want to throw out for fun as well, and I know it may sound a little goofy, but the Leprechaun. No, I'm kidding. No, the movie White Noise. Okay, so if anybody's ever seen that with Michael Keaton, um, when it came out in the early 2000s, this was right when the reality shows like Ghost Hunters, things like that, was coming out. People didn't know a lot about EVPs. So the whole movie is based on sort of that EVP. And if you watch the movie, there's a lot of stuff that sounds like, could be legitimate EVPs, or, like they make it, but it's that whole premise. And of course, things start to happen. There's a lot of communication that's going on through these EVPs. He becomes obsessed with listening to the white noise and capturing. And I think it speaks a lot to, one, the plausibility of people getting sucked into that world of where they're just so caught up trying to find their loved one through paranormal that they just really get deeper and deeper and deeper until eventually it's too late and they can't get out. And that's one of the big lessons of the movie. But as far as plausibility, I mean, if you really watch the movie, sort of take away some of the ending and maybe over the top supernatural events. But EVPs have always been one of the most real evidence I've ever captured out of all the years. So there's something that kind of hits a little differently about that movie for me than other movies, because it's something that I could find plausible that, yes, EVPs, and you could get certain messages through that type of communication. And, it's to me, I always found that to be interesting. I like the movie. My wife and I, we love it. We haven't watched it in a while though, but
that was in the 80s too, wasn't it?
Huh?
That came out in the 80s too, correct?
No, I think that was an early 2000 type thing. Okay. If I remember correctly, I don't know. I can't remember. I have to look. 2005. So yeah, like I said, it was right at that time when
I actually had a case, probably 6 or 7 years ago now, of a lady who actually she had learned about the EVPs through watching Ghost Hunters, and she started catching these EVPs that actually was communicating with her, and she finally started getting scared of what was actually starting to happen. She called me, and we began to talk about it, and I began to share with her that this was not a good thing, and that it wasn't who she thought it was. And as we began to walk through that process, she began to realize that there was a lot more things happening. And so we basically had to, she had to basically repent of what she was doing, and then we had to cleanse the house out. We had to cleanse the air, because whatever was communicating with her, it was beginning to really, almost like that movie, it was really beginning to dictate what she would eat, what she would say, who she would talk to. It was almost really just involving her. So yeah, I mean that actually can happen and has happened.
Yeah. So I think that's really good that we covered some of that. I'm going to take a quick moment because, guys, I do always try to acknowledge you in the chat. Don't get me wrong. I try to keep an eye out for questions, and when I see them, you don't have to panic because I will get to you usually. Matt says, a question for everyone. Do you feel that some of these movies that have some historical accuracy are a positive to the event or hurt the history side of the events? Don't know if I missed that.
Well, I guess it depends on who's the director. I mean, having Stone do JFK probably helped keep the conspiracy alive, but at the same time, it wasn't history.
Right.
It was his view of things that took place, and he, conveniently left some things out that were really important that didn't fit the narrative. So, why add that?
Right. But also, if you are, if you're like Jerry Bruckheimer or something and you're doing like Pearl Harbor,
right.
just quit. Don't just quit. Go back to something else, because you're not doing history justice, and especially if it has anything to do with Ben Affleck in there. So
Yeah.
yes. So I hope that covers it, Matt, because I think Stacy said it good, and I think you saw both sides of it, good and bad. Sean, you need to add anything in there?
I think you covered it.
All right, yeah. So and maybe Titanic. Maybe we could throw that in there. So and then of course Terry Lynn says, Josh, have you ever played them our EVPs from our old house? I mean, I have played them, on air, but I don't know if we're sort of getting off. So I don't know if it'll even work. Hold on, let me see something here. Can you guys hear this? Hold on, listen. All right, so could you guys hear that at all?
Barely. It sounded like a little girl. Was it?
Yeah, so right in here now, I have an isolated version, I think. Hold on. So you can actually hear too. Now I'm not going to say what I think it says, but in the beginning there seems to be like a child saying something. Now keep in mind, this is only Terry Lynn and I really in the house. Okay, this is our house, so it's not like we're in an environment. We control the environment. So, but if you listen to the beginning part in this area, whatever, when there's like a childlike voice, and then at the end you hear that scuffling. Right, the scuffling was just a little dog. And then you hear what sounds like a male yell a word, spirit, yell a word. That was all. We didn't hear none of that by ear. So I found that this was one of our. So let me go back and let you guys hear this one more time. All right, I'm gonna shut up. Ready? Still gives me chills. So there you go.
Yeah, I couldn't tell what they were saying at all. I could just hear like there was a voice.
Yeah, and I hate to lead people into what I think it says, but I mean, I still want to leave the first part open for interpretation. The last one, the closest thing when I imitate it, when I'm like spirits, it's almost like I'm saying spirits. It sounds like an S, almost like a P. But whatever it is, it's somebody yelling. To me, it sounds clear, like it's a man yelling at the top of his voice, but it's in that EVP layer. It's in the background because you can even hear Terry Lynn, I think, in the long version. You even hear her voice. Where is it? And you can tell the difference between like a real person and, of course, an EVP. Let's see where it is. Right. So you can even hear her voice, and it's completely different than if somebody was to yell or whatever. But anyways, but that's some reality for you folks. Here's the what is this? Yeah, I don't know if you're going to be able to hear that. Somewhere around in here. Hold on. Yeah, hold on. I'll do that back one more time. So if you look somewhere, can you guys see my cursor? So if you look somewhere right in here, right, there's really like 4 syllables. Ta, 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 ta. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. So if I'm going to go back and play this again, and it's a whisper ish. So hold on one second. Hello.
25%.
What? You're on speaker.
But you're really,
You're on
put
speakerphone.
your mic by the speaker. Nobody can barely hear anything.
Well, I know because it's like on a share screen thing. That's probably why.
Put your mic by the speaker.
All right, I put you by the speaker. See?
Mic by the
All
speaker.
right, I love you, bye.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why I just take calls on there. All right. So yeah, I'll try this again. Here, let me put the mic down by my speaker. I'll turn it up a little bit too by this speaker. I don't know if you guys can make that out or not.
No, I couldn't hear it. Oh, it just sounds like a wind.
Yeah, that sucks because, in all honesty, like that was one of those ones that. Okay, so this is the backstory on this one, real quick, and that is that when I went to one of those big locations, right, and we did this investigation. It was so much cheese. We didn't find hardly anything. We just got the overall feeling of like the ghosts were just kind of like hiding and embarrassed. And literally, when I went to go talk to management about doing a private investigation, because at that time we were doing the preliminary investigations for ghost hunters and for taps. So I went to talk to him about doing a private investigation. And so she, Terry Lynn was in our truck, and it was raining, Florida, big surprise. It was in St. Augustine. It was actually at the St. Augustine Lighthouse. And so she's in the truck, the rain's hitting the thing, causing massive white noise. That's what you're hearing. And you hear a voice literally say, "Help me get out." Like right here. It's like, "Help me get out." And you can make it out if you have, like, I can hear it but I mean, when you're on the headphones, you can clearly hear somebody whisper in the white noise, "Help me get out." So I'll play it one more time just to see if you guys hear, but it's right here's about where it starts, right before you see that 10-second replay. I'll put the mic down here. Oops. Guess I should rewind it. I don't know if you guys heard it on that, but like I said, it's kind of hard to sometimes play these ones over on a screen share. But anyways, I had some other ones, but it was kind of cool that we actually was able to salvage some of our EVPs from back in the day. What? She keeps stomping on the ceiling, guys. Post my question. What? What's your question? Did you? Oh, don't make me call you again. What? Post what question? Oh, whatever. Maybe I said what. Maybe I just said whatever I said. All right. Well, anyways, no more awkwardness. All right. So there you guys go. Wanted to play you guys some of that. I know we have sort of kind of a long show. We're gonna kind of get things in the. Oh my God, Terry Lynn's calling. You're on the air.
You are killing me. I mean, everybody knows what I'm talking about. Put the microphone down by the speaker and play the first one because nobody can hear it at all.
Oh, the first one. All right.
Yes.
Fine.
Good Lord. I mean, look at Sean. Look at Sean and Stacey both laughing as you do the best. It's been sitting over there in chat. You know what I'm talking about.
All right, hold on.
Bye.
All right, here. I'm going to play the first one a few times for you guys to listen to what we talked about.
There.
Real world EVPs.
You can hear it better there.
One more time. Crank it up. Better?
Yeah.
All right. All right, I'm going to turn that down, get you guys back up here. All right, so there you go. There's There's one of our favorite. This was one of our very first EVPs when we got our new recorders, and we're like, "Hey, we need to start doing EVPs." And we got our recorders in. We set up our house. This was the first EVP that convinced me that there's something else going on in beyond. So. Because I knew I didn't hear those voices the first time. Like when I played and I heard that stuff in the background, I'm like in my headphones, all listening. You're like, yeah, okay, this is kind of boring. And then you're like, what the? You hear it, and whenever you hear those, man, it just, oh man, every time. And that's the thing, like all the evidence review, like over all the different cases over the years, like you just sit there, and most of the time people don't get it. It's boring, it's super boring. But most of the time you're just listening to like, then you hear like somebody talk loud, like, and then it's like, But then when you finally get that, help me, you're like, whoa, what the? And the chills go down the back of your neck, and because as an investigator, you were there, you didn't hear it with your voice, And you can hear it in the white noise. It wasn't somebody whispering. It wasn't another team member or whatever. When they're real, and it's crazy. It's absolutely insane. Okay, so let's go back to the fun movie versus reality stuff. I want to cover a couple of little quick things here, and that is I'm going to share this with you guys. Let's put this back up here. Wait, why is here we go. All right, so this is some of the top 100 movies, horror movies, according to RottenTomatoes.com. Now, I don't know how they rank these. It doesn't look like necessarily percentages or number of reviews or something. It says movies with 40 or more critic reviews vie for their place in history at Rotten Tomatoes. Eligible movies are ranked based on their adjusted scores. So they got horror, of course they got a bunch of other stuff, but horror is where it's at. So the number one is Us. Have you guys seen this movie? 2019.
I don't even know what it's about.
Me neither. How about Get Out?
Nope.
Now this one here, Get Out, I have seen this one. My wife and I did watch this one. Very good movie. I enjoyed it. I did. I actually did like this. I think Terry Lynn liked this. Good movie, good acting. Really enjoyed that. So if you guys haven't seen Get Out, it really is a good one. Now, again, I'm not going to sit there and comment on whether or not I agree with their listing of order. I'm just commenting. I just thought we'd start going through on there. So we've got a 1920, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Do you guys know of this one? You familiar with this old school one?
No.
See, I'm gonna have to check this out. Let me look and see here. Huh. Look at that. Oh. Got a 99% and even an 89% audio score. So that looks pretty cool. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. It's like I always feel. Do you guys ever feel bad when you know something's a classic and you've never seen it, and you're just like you feel like you're the outcast?
Yeah, I've never seen E.T.
Hey, there you go. Okay, so God, these stupid ads. You guys suck. All right. So we got A Quiet Place. Now, I have not seen this one, so don't ruin it if you guys have seen it. Anybody have seen this?
No.
I saw the second one too that just came out.
Is it good?
Yeah, I mean, the first one I guess was more left to your imagination of what the things were, and the second one they actually got into the CG.
Yeah, they like to do that in movies now. Do you like when they do that, or I mean, I like imagination stuff.
I do too. I mean, Jurassic Park was like that. A lot of the most intense scenes in Jurassic Park were imagination. Bushes flying around with, the velociraptors eating people. I mean, that was better than if they'd actually showed it.
Yeah, I agree. We have Nosferatu on here, the old 1922 version coming in at number 5. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I
Uh,
like. Yeah, go ahead.
I just seen parts of it. I haven't seen the whole thing.
Sean?
For its time, I think it was pretty interesting. It's also interesting to see how, at that particular time, vampires was ugly, um, but yet they're starting to make that transition into the romantic side, if you will. It's starting just a little bit there, but yeah, I liked it. It was okay.
Now they twinkle.
Yeah, yeah.
Which we had a conversation about that in chat earlier, by the way. So they actually did bring up Twilight. I See You See Me did, and Terry Lynn, but I left that alone. But I think it was Bram Stoker's Dracula that started to change that. Do you agree?
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
think that's where it started to make that turn, because they really put they put the stuff in there.
They added the sexual content was more explicit on that particular point.
Right. And I can't think of other vampire movies before that really glorified it that much, because even something like The Lost Boys and things like that still had an ugliness to it.
Right.
Even though they sometimes made them fun, they just didn't make them sexy yet, so to speak, or whatever. And then, like I said, I think Bram Stoker's Dracula started to do that, and then Interview with a Vampire, and I think once he started getting that, anytime you got Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt as vampires, chicks dig scars. So let's see, King Kong, 1933. Are you guys down with the original King Kong?
I hadn't seen the original.
Now, see, I've seen, again, bits and pieces of some of the original King Kong. And, of course, the effects were completely awesome back then, all the stop motion animation, but just some of the practical effects and the way they were using some of the set displacement and stuff. It was really cool. So I definitely got to give that props. Let's see. Oh, Terlin said, oh yeah. Still never saw Deliverance. Laugh out loud, but we know about the banjos.
You're in banjo country right now.
Right? Well, yeah, anytime you're in the South, I mean, you can, that's the funny thing is all of a sudden the banjo thing, it's like, come on, man. But yeah.
There's places around here you don't want to go at night.
Right. That's true. Now there's things happen in the hollers. All right, that's all I'm gonna say. If you don't know what a holler is, don't go up in one. All right. So unless you're family, if you're kin, you can go up in a holler. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, maybe.
But even if the law goes up in the holler, but they usually know them.
There's places that the law won't go at night. So
right. Okay, we got Psycho, the 1960 Psycho. What do you guys think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think now, if I'm thinking the right one, is that who plays that?
Curtis.
Curtis. No, I don't believe I've seen that one.
Jamie Lee Curtis's mom.
Oh no, I hadn't seen that one.
She was the scream queen back then, man. She was the original with the shower scene. Killing off your character like halfway through the movie. That was like ballsy back then, like Psycho. And the thing is that was also very imaginative too. Like they didn't even use red blood for the shower scene. And there was literally, I think, like 70 some cuts in that editing in that scene, but you wouldn't know it. But it was filmed in such a way that it didn't show the gratuitous stabbing, but it felt like such. And this is what goes back to even Stacey talks about too, is like, I love when filmmakers use the imagination. Mm-hmm. I love that. And I think that's something that, again, I want to emulate as I'm getting more and more into short films. I like keeping the imagination. Even my little short sheet movie that you guys saw the little image of, I like just having that plain imagination sometimes of like, it doesn't have to do anything scary. It doesn't have to do anything. It can just be creepy. It can just be unknown. And there's something sometimes scary about that unknown of what could happen, you know, and I love that. But it's also perspective too on how things are filmed with imagination. Hitchcock did a great little film class on this one time. Is what he did, and this was really cool, is Hitchcock was talking, and so he was talking about how like people's perceptions are and how you can change those perceptions with film and all that. And so he took an image of himself, like he videotaped himself kind of doing this smile, you know, just a polite, he's an older guy, just a polite smile. So he showed an image of like a family at a picnic, basically, right? A child playing and he's smiling, you know, whatever. Very, very innocent, very warm-hearted. It makes it look like he's like this warm-hearted grandfather, you know, who's enjoying the scene. Well, then he takes the same scene and removes it and replaces it with a girl laying there in a bikini. You know, this is all in black and white, you know, and they show the same old man smiling. So now it looks as it's the same clip. Mm-hmm. It's just because the context changed. Now it makes him look like a perverted old man, possibly. So I always find that interesting how we can change that perception of things, but even using our imagination of just showing some things. And even if you're showing something that you're not actually showing that gratuitous event, but just showing the other images of the knife up in the air in the motion and showing the person reacting and the knife just keeps coming. It's a really cool concept on how to really get that imagination going. So I just thought I'd share that with you guys.
Well, he used to do stuff with the audience too, you know, where he would electrify with a small amount of voltage some of the chairs in the audience of movie theaters. And right when there was a scary thing coming up, the music was starting to build and there was getting really tense, he'd hit that button and shock somebody. They'd scream and the whole audience would scream, you know, just because it was at that one moment he wanted to get the whole audience to jump. And,
right.
You know, it was, you know, and nobody ever knew which chair it was that he was doing that to, but, you know.
Now, you know, if you guys can see the list, I don't know if you guys can read. Can you guys read that list by any chance? I don't know.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
I'm not too good, but I can a little bit.
Right. Well, I mean, if you see anything on there, because I don't want to just go each one all the time, but I mean, I see things like Aliens up there, the Silence of the Lambs, Night of the Living Dead. You know, these are some good ones on there. Frankenstein, the original 1931 Frankenstein. Which again, the makeup effects back then were amazing for the Frankenstein's monster. Really just top notch back then. Hereditary. This is a movie that my wife and I saw, and there is some really good moments in there that I felt were pretty scary.
I've been meaning to watch that one.
Huh?
That's the one I've been meaning to watch, is Hereditary. Yes.
Well, I don't want to ruin the scene, but there is a scene that, to me, they don't quite show something. I'm trying to leave it generic, but the person's fear in the fact that the camera doesn't show you, and that you're just there experiencing this moment, and you know what happened. You know that the driver knows what happened. But again, I don't want to ruin anything, but I'm just saying, you know everything that happens. You know the context, but they're not showing you again. They're not showing you something. And it's like, it really was filmed well in that sense. It was. There are some good things about that movie, I will say. And again, I'm not a big fan of horror movies, but there are certain ones that come along that I think, again, are filmed well, and it allows yourself to get kind of caught up in some of the and it does have something to do with kind of like the cult, a little bit of almost satanic ritual type stuff. So pretty cool. Got to check it out. Anything else you guys see on here that you want to point out? Anything that what was a movie that maybe possibly scared you guys? Was there anything that came close to scaring you?
The Witch.
The Witch.
It's actually the whole dialogue, the script.
Oh yeah, right here, The Witch.
Yeah, it's a period piece, but that guy's voice is beyond creepy all by itself. That's his natural voice. But the entire dialogue of that movie was a story that was being told in the Salem witch trials as evidence to show that witches are real. So they told this whole story and put it in the court transcripts, and they turn around and make it a movie out of that particular story, which is The Witch. And that's the part that made it really intense. It was a low budget movie, but it was really well done. And that guy's voice, anybody else had done the movie and it just wouldn't have carried it. So,
Sean, what about you? Was there a movie that kind of got to you?
Not really. I mean, maybe, I think it's kind of corny, but I really kind of got into it. Was Ninth Gate, I believe it was, Johnny Depp. The corniness alone, the effect of that, but just the idea of having, because they were using some real, well, I wouldn't say real, but they were using a lot of folklore, just kind of like Room 1408. They're using a lot of that folklore stuff to kind of, so if you actually know a lot of the folklore, a lot of where I do a lot of the occult research, where a lot of that stuff, you kind of see behind what the storylines that they're getting. And I kind of felt like it was, but kind of coming back to what scared me, when I was young, like I said, the Snow Beast, that TV, it was just on TV. It wasn't even really, a slasher type movie. It just that Bigfoot kind of Yeti kind of thing. Because we lived out in the middle of nowhere, and every time it snowed after that, I was kind of looking around for big feet and stuff like that.
Right. So a couple of quick things too is like, what were there any particular scenes in movies, whether maybe not the whole movie, because like there's some movies that I think ultimately sucked, but sometimes they have a good scene in there. Is there any of those for you guys? And I'm going to go first by saying that I was in a movie theater a long time ago with a buddy. It was one of those secondhand type movie theaters where they play it again and you go watch it for like a couple bucks. Well, there was a place in Fort Walton Beach, Florida called Suds and Cinema. And back then you could smoke, drink beer and stuff like that. And this is back when I smoked. I was a 20-year smoker. And of course, I've been smoke free now for like 10 years. But back then I was smoking and stuff. So I'm like, hey, I can go to this movie theater, watch something for like $1 or $2. We can order a pitcher of beer like me and my buddy Ryan. We can sit there and smoke cigarettes. Well, he didn't smoke. I smoked. I sit there and smoke cigarettes, drink beer, and watch a movie. How cool is that? And they had food and stuff. And they had like tables. Like you had like, it wasn't like the theater setup. It was like all these little tables that were in, the elevated platforms, but it was a bunch of tables. Pretty cool. So Terry Lynn knows what I'm talking about, Southern Cinema. But in any case, we watched Jeepers Creepers there. So I don't know if you guys remember that movie, if you've seen it. But to me, there's a scene where it's like the brothers, I think, were they brother sister, or I don't think they were boyfriend girl. I think they were brother sister or something, but the male and the female. And there's that chute that goes down in the ground. I guess that's where he dumps the bodies and they go sliding down there or whatever, down to his lair or something, But anyways, they come across that in the daytime, and the dude like goes down there. He like falls down there or whatever, and he's down there. And for me, this scene became so intense. Like I'm in the theater, he's down there in this unknown creature's lair who you really didn't know a lot about in this point in the movie. And it's just that perspective where you're looking down the hole and you see him down there, and you're just waiting for the classic moment where something's just going to come and swipe his ass, just right, boom, like you're waiting, and it didn't happen. Spoiler alert. But it's like your imagination, and you're just like, and it just had you looking down this spot, and he's looking around, and he's like, I don't know, and he's calling off things. It was, to me, it was a very tense scene, and I love that. It just really stood out to me. Anything like that for you guys?
Well, you're right. Jeepers Creepers was an excellent movie. Both 1 and 2, I liked it. Because in the beginning you think he's going to be like Leatherface, a serial killer, who's just crazy serial killer who lives out in the middle of nowhere, because that's when all serial killers live, I guess. But you think he's just a regular guy, and it turns into he's like a demon, and he comes back every 50 years or something like that.
I think it's like 27 or something like odd. It's like some weird number, I think, like that, like every 20 some years. Yeah, I think they're coming out. They want to come out with another one or something. I know they can't. I think they came out with a third one, but I think they want to do another one. But I think real quick before Sean answers his maybe a scene. But one thing I want to add about Jeepers Creepers, like if I had to pick out of creatures that if they were in real life, for me, that Jeepers Creepers dude is like freaking scary. Like there's something about him that really creeps me out compared to like Jason or Freddy or whatever. But there's something about that Jeepers Creepers dude, man. I don't know. If I saw that, man, that's creepy.
Yeah.
Sean, what about you? You got a moment?
Well, I think we got to at least touch on Stanley Kubrick's The Shining at least once in this talk.
Wendy?
Yeah. But the scene where he's standing there at the maze and he's just kind of in that zombie-like trance looking down at the maze, and he's kind of seeing he's kind of seeing them walk through this maze, and how just the whole idea of the shining of the house, or not the house, but the whole hotel changes and mimics. You go in one room and you enter in a different way every time, or you go in the meat locker, you're coming out a different place. I mean, the whole thing is changing. Yeah. And, there at the end, like you're showing it right now when he's,
whoops. Sorry.
When he's coming out and he's trying to go after the kid, and the kid just backtracks and hides and goes, But the whole thing with The Shining, I think, is something, and also with Jeepers Creepers, is that there's another force at work, not just the person, but there's something else there. Like the Jeepers Creepers, when I watched it, I kind of thought, for me, it's like, okay, what force is behind this thing, this guy? Right. What force is that?
Right. This really kind of demonic. And I think that's what, for me, was just like the demonic side of things of just, I think that's what makes it is creepy, is that there's just some some folklore about this dude. I don't know, but yeah, it's all creeping to me on that, as far as, and maybe looking at these right now, I don't know, maybe if I'm not as creeped out, but there was definitely some imagery in, like, I think the scarecrow part was weird, like when he was kind of like the scarecrow looking thing, like in the second one, what I'm talking about, Stacey? And
yeah,
it didn't really make sense. I think that was more thrown in there because somebody's like, hey, this would make a really cool thing. But it worked. It was really cool to just have him as like a scarecrow moment or something. That was always pretty cool. Let's see if that's even in here. Jeeper keep scarecrow. But yeah, that's like when he was up there, that I don't know, there was just something about that. Of course, obviously there's imagery involved in that, but pretty cool stuff in that sense. Pretty scary. But yeah, guys, we could probably go on about this stuff forever. I know the show's been really long. I know you guys have got to go, so we'll start wrapping up. I just thought it was a fun subject just to talk a little bit about I want to say, Stacy, thank you for the subject of Hollywood and reality. We've talked a little bit about reality and Hollywood, and maybe we didn't do a real good job of trying to combine both. But I think at the same time, we definitely talked a lot about these stuff. And I See You See Me, I did see you where she said that Alien was scary to her. She said she didn't see it on there. I think they had Aliens. So I think they thought that the second one was probably scarier.
It was better. I liked it better.
Yeah, I think ultimately the original is really good, but I think Aliens, when you add all the different characters, game over, man. It really is a good one. And then after that, you pretty much don't need to really watch any more of the Alien stuff. I think you can just do the first two. Silence of the Lambs, yeah. I mean, just some of these are really good movies, of course. Anyways, yeah, like I said, there's so many of these things that Carrie. Was you guys affected by Carrie at all? Did you guys like any? Is that scary when you were maybe a little younger?
No. A lot of these movies, like I said, I laughed. They were hilarious in what was supposed to be the gory part or the scary part or whatever it was. Maybe I'm just sick and twisted that way, but I can't remember the last time I was actually scared in a movie. Except Aliens. Aliens, I was, because you actually got to see them. The first one, you didn't really get to see them. It was all shadow and, flashy strobe lights, and, you got to saw the teeth, but that was it. But,
well, I mean, think about the first Friday the 13th. It wasn't even Jason. It was his mom. And they didn't even reveal that till the very end. And so all you saw was just somebody killing people. And even the second one, that he didn't even have his hockey mask yet. He had his burlap sack thing, which is still pretty scary in a way, but still not even the character hadn't even quite taken form by then either.
Oh, I take it back. The Grudge. I See You See Me said The Grudge was scared at that. The Japanese filming of spirits and stuff, that freaks me out.
Yes. See?
The Grudge and what was the other? The Ring.
Right.
Yeah, those freak me out. I take it back. The Japanese style stuff is wicked scary.
Yeah, and Terry Lynn said Carrie was her childhood nightmare because she snuck in while her parents was watching it. And she said, when I was really little, it scared me so bad, saw the blood dumped on her, and that stuck with me for life. I think that's the funny thing, too, is like when I saw Carrie when I was younger, it was like I didn't see the whole movie. It's like I happened to catch the end where the bad stuff happens, and when they dump the pig's blood on her and all that. It's like, whoa, like, so talk about crazy timing, right? But what was it? Yes. Oh, I wanted to make that point. Stacy, yeah, you're right. The Japanese style, very scary as well. In fact, Terry Lynn and I, there's a video game called Fatal Frame. There's a series called Fatal Frame 2. There's 3, and then there's it starts getting some just Japanese only release. But the Fatal Frame games is a cult classic, and if nobody has ever played them, there is something inherently suspenseful and terrifying about them. And what I would recommend is start with 2. Don't play 1. Start with 2. And I believe the platform was PS2, but you can still download them and play them like on PS3s and even 4s maybe. But we started with 2, like Terry Lynn and I. This was way back before Christian was born, and so Terry Lynn used to love watching me play some of the shoot 'em games back then. She just liked to chill on the couch, watch me, and I'd play some. And even though I sucked, but anyways, so she wanted to do the scary thing, of course. So we went to one of the game stores back then, and we were looking around, and we just couldn't find anything that looked appealing. Well, we came across this one called Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly. And I don't even think we realized it was the sequel. We just thought, I think we just noticed the Fatal Frame and the Crimson Butterfly. I don't think we even really noticed the two. But we took it home, and it's very Japanese based. Like, it's like these two twin girls. We play pretty much like these twin, I don't know, 13-year-olds or something. Mayu and Mayu or something. And you go to this village, and you're like in the dark, in the woods. One of the girls fall. I don't know. But anyways, you end up at this village, and once you kind of cross this barrier, you can't leave. It's like this cursed village. And once you go in there, then it's like the story sort of keeps unfolding. And it was shot as a video game. It was done so well because like you would see like a side view of the two girls or whatever. It would look like the one sister would put her hand on the girl's shoulder, but then the sister would move and the hand would still be there, like that kind of stuff. And it was done really well. And horror games and scary games back then were not very good in games because you had like Silent Hill, Resident Evil. They were just more kind of shoot 'em up, a few jump scares. But this really was the thing. So Terry Lynn wants me to show you guys the trailer. I don't know if that's going to get me in trouble, so I don't know if we can do that one. But the bottom line is let me get off the screen here real quick. But yeah, the bottom line is you don't have a gun through the whole game. You have no gun, nothing like that. You do scrounge for some supplies, and toward the beginning of the game, you come across a camera, and this camera is called the Camera Obscura. So, and you can upgrade the camera as you go. There's like spirit stones and things like that, and it's really cool because the concept, it's like you can see the dead through the viewfinder. So, but in a way, it's like you can't just walk around and like look around and go, oh, but you walk around, and then when something happens in the game, like you trigger something or a ghost, then to fight the ghost, so to speak, you have to pull up and do the viewfinder, and then they've got like the tense, kind of scary, Japanese music going on, and it's like, whoa, it's like you're trying to, and you got to snap these shots off, and then if you capture them at the right moments, it can like hurt the ghost, but you end up with a collection of photography moments and stuff. But it's really cool. It's really well done, really scary. They do a lot of the things that we might consider a little classic now at times, but back then it's just filmed so well, done so well in a video game. I can't stress enough about how good something like that was for PS2. And then of course the third one, really good as well. First one, they were still a little cheesier with some of the camera effects and stuff, so it kind of takes you out of it a little bit. It wasn't as good. But certainly that's why I tell people start with the second, play the third, and then once you kind of get used to it, go back to the first just for the heck of it. But the second and third, really good games, really good. So, what else is there? I see Stevie says there's a Walking Dead RPG. Tried playing it and quit after about 20 minutes. Yeah, I think zombies are pretty. Zombies are pretty cool. I don't know if they like scare me. I think the concept, like the show Walking Dead, I like watching that. I think that the concept of humanity in those situations, I think is pretty cool. And I think sometimes when you see the characters get in some pretty crazy situations and get killed, sometimes you're like, it does get pretty scary in a way if you kind of start self-reflecting, saying, well, that might be something I might do. But then you kind of you see what happens, and they died, and you're like, well, I guess I'm probably not going to survive long in the afterworld. Or, in the post-apocalyptic world. It's like, God dang it! Like I thought I would do good. Like now, like no, fat man ain't going to do good in the post-apocalyptic world, man. I'll tell you that right now. So, but anyways, you guys have any final thoughts that you want to wrap up on some of the Hollywood versus reality, scary stuff? Anything you want to share?
Well, just real briefly, because you just talked about zombies. There there's real zombies, and then there's the Hollywood zombies. The Hollywood zombies, they're always dead, resurrected, whereas real zombies with the tetrodotoxin powder, the zombie powder that, like the Haitian voodoo, that is from the pufferfish. And the idea is to basically it paralyzes everything in your body except you're completely aware of what's going on. Your heart slows down to such a degree that it's unrecognizable on an EKG. You look dead on every level because you're not breathing, your heartbeat's slowed way down, but you're completely aware of what's going on. You can feel, taste, smell, everything that's going on. And then they bury you, and you stay that way in the ground for 12 to 24 hours. Oxygen deprivation kicks in, and then you have brain damage. You are essentially a zombie at that point. Somebody who is really susceptible to whatever commands they're given. It's actually called in-zombie. It's basically a person who is without a soul. So
It's interesting. I mean, I know we talked about it. I know even when I first met Sean, if Sean remembers too, he was sending me some studies on a few different case studies on real life zombie situations and things. So there's certainly versions of zombies for sure. I think that, is it plausible? Absolutely. Sean, why don't you chime in here? I've been talking enough.
No. I mean, everything you said is absolutely true, and some of the studies that we looked at with near-death experiences, NDEs, stuff like that as well, they kind of come into play. Besides the zombie that Stacey just talked about, the idea of some of it is also going into like an altered state of consciousness, not necessarily drug, but you can also introduce the drugs like DMT, stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's sometimes the real stuff to me is more exciting. I guess that's my parting thoughts. Is sometimes to me the real stuff is more exciting and more interesting than the Hollywood versions.
Yeah. Well, and I want to share something on a real level too. Is like, look, in Hollywood, yes, I mean, there's going to be things you're going to watch. At some point, something is going to trigger that part of you, that fear. Like, we all have our fears. If you live without fear, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how you could. I just think it's part of natural life, and I think it's good. Sometimes it's good to have fears that we can conquer, overcome, use to our advantage, whatever. But for me, as far as like paranormal goes, most 99% of all situations have always been, it's mostly boring. It's like, if I could play a clip of the crickets chirping, that's pretty much paranormal investigations for real. In a nutshell, it is 99% boring. It really is. There's a little bit of an element of just being at location sometimes. I think the only time it's not boring, again, that 99%, it might be 90% boring if you're at like a cool place that you have a lot to look at, architecture, a big mansion or something, whatever. So there could be those type of thrills. But I will say, when we're talking about scary Hollywood-wise versus real, again, I bring this up. I've brought it up before, but one of the most terrifying moments for me in real life was when I was in that hospital for my show on Paraflix, and I'm not trying to just plug that. When I was in that incinerator room, I've never ever experienced that much activity ever. Like, I just never did, and not that much going on, where it was just and what I think what pissed me off is that it wasn't happening inside the room I was in. Mm-hmm. It was happening outside the walls in different spots, and it was playing on my paranoia that maybe somebody broke into the hospital or whatever, and I was starting to get paranoid, and I had to kind of calm down and find my center and muscle through the challenge of being there and it being there for like 40 minutes. But it really messed with me, like psychologically, because again, as soon as I left that place, quiet, dead quiet, no pun intended, but dead quiet after that. But just the moment I stepped foot in that incinerator room to the moment I left, that 40 minutes I was in there was really, again, sort of terrifying, because I've never just had noises happening so frequent, just all over. I mean, again, out of if there was like a chart of my paranormal experiences in life, it'd be like, boom, this is one little quick thing. It just out of everything. So that's a real life terrifying moment.
Well, it shows. I mean, you can tell the quality based off of what you filmed, and even before and after that, you can tell the mood is different. So
yeah. Let's see here. I'm gonna show you guys this real quick because we're getting ready to wrap things up here. So let me show you guys this real quick, just because Terry Lynn, she wanted me to really show you guys. We'll just play some of this here.
The sisters have found themselves trapped in the lost village. On the day of the ceremony, the village vanished.
Camera.
The ritual is fast approaching.
逃げて。お姉ちゃん、どうしちゃったの？お姉ちゃん。
祭りが始まってしまう早く逃げる。大切な人を失うことになる。
One sister. Kill the other.
お姉ちゃん。ずっと一緒だから。
Fuck that. Sorry. So yeah, that's there you go. I played it for you guys, so hopefully I don't get taken down or copyrighted for that. But like this whole show, we did like 2 hours, and it's like a copyright strike. But yeah, so I know it's kind of hard to tell because it's an old trailer, but once you get in the game, I mean, the atmosphere, it's just that rundown village as you go through these different buildings. Obviously it's probably not the greatest trailer, but at the same time, I think you can kind of see the overall feel of some of that game. But for a PlayStation 2 game back then, really well done, and very cult classic. So anyway, that's all I had to share with that. I know Terry really wanted you guys to see that, so I had to make sure to put that in there. So other than that, guys, so I think Stacy, Sean, did you have anything to add? I know Stacy had anything. Cool. Well, guys, I hope that you guys out there in viewer land, please smash the like button, subscribe, go check out Stacy at udemy.com, Sean Carter at Unveiling the Paranormal on YouTube. And guys, we'll see you in the next video. And remember, seek the truth.